2008, Hudson Alpha researchers have worked to understand many different types of diseases. As Neil Lamb described earlier, neurological diseases are one of the most complicated and devastating groups of diseases. And unfortunately, as you heard, 1 in 7 of us is likely to be affected with this in our lifetime. Tonight is not only an important event for Hudson Alpha Institute, it's also a very important night for me. They gave me the opportunity to just share my story with you for a few minutes, and I appreciate your time in listening. By a show of hands, and this is self-identification, so you don't worry if you don't want to identify, but how many of you are considered baby boomers in the room? Okay. All right, that's good. You can be honest, it's all right. All right, and how many of you are Generation X? Generation X, those are the ones right below the baby boomers, okay. And after that come the millennials and so forth. What I'm going to talk about tonight, I'm going to start with this slide. We are in the midst of what they have coined as a silver tsunami for you baby boomers. You are just the beginning of this. And in the U.S. alone, between 2000 and 2050, they expect a 193% increase in Alzheimer's disease. And again, you heard the statistics before. But unlike cancer and heart disease and so many of the other things that we have been working on, there is no cure for Alzheimer's. When you look at this slide, this is the cost to U.S. taxpayers alone, not even the global cost of what this disease is projected to cost. And if you will look at that bottom number, so Mayor Battle and Eula, your grandson George, who was born today, has a life expectancy they could live to be 120 years old. We have got to eradicate these diseases, and especially Alzheimer's, because all of us are going to be affected with this in one way or the other. I'm going to share a different picture with you, though. Look what happens if we were to find a treatment within the next 10 years by 2025 that simply delayed the disease by 5 years. The cost, the number of people that were affected, and the cost would go down tremendously. And of course, we would go on from there. So why are these goals very personal and important to me? And I'm going to just share that with you now. For those of you all that have seen the movie Still Alice, it's the one Julianne Moore won an Oscar for recently. I'm living that right now. I'm in the middle of that. This picture is of my grandmother and her sisters. These are the Fitzgerald sisters. My grandmother, Annie Osborne Fitzgerald, is on the left. I honestly don't know who Larry is. It's a family picture, and when you have Alzheimer's in your family, we've forgotten. We don't know who he is, and I have no one to ask anymore. But that is my grandmother on the left. We are in basically at least our 3rd generation. We pretty much are sure it's our 4th generation of dealing with this disease of Alzheimer's. That is my great-grandmother on the wall in the picture, my grandmother, and then my mother holding me. We know that my mom now, because of medical science, she was tested and has the APOE3 and 4 genetic marker, which was nice to know because it responds well to current drugs, Aricept, and the things that treat Alzheimer's. I have not been tested yet. My mother was first diagnosed at age 67 in 2008, but there were signs well before that, and of course she had had anxiety about getting this disease her entire life. By the time this photo was taken, and for those of you who are involved with leadership, this was our 25th anniversary just a few years ago, my mother had forgotten many of our family members, including her grandchildren. And in January of last year, in 2015, my parents celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, but at that point, my mother, no longer knew what was happening. Our story is like so many others that I know. I am sandwiched because I started my child bearing late. I have a third grader and a high school senior, and I'm taking care of my mother, who has the only health issues she has. She is healthy as can be, except for this horrid disease. My mother is incontinent, she is immobile, and she cannot feed herself, but she can still smile. She is 74 years old. My grandmother died from this disease at age 86. If I have this disease, it will onset with me when my youngest is in her mid-20s and my oldest is in her mid-30s, and they're going to be faced with all of the decisions and the care that I'm having to do right now. The impact of this disease and other related neurological diseases such as ALS and Parkinson and Huntington, they are devastating because they rob us of our humanity, of the ability to make memories and communicate and laugh and love. I and the millions of families in my situation need interventions. We need information that we can use, and in my case, I need it really in the next 10 to 15 years in order to intervene with my situation. But I choose not to be afraid of the future. I choose to do something, and that is why you are here tonight, and that is what I challenge all of you to do, because I choose to fight this disease. If you are here tonight, and I know many of you in this room, you are not a spectator to life. You are willing to do something. To solve these challenging issues is not a spectator sport. We can't continue to sit back and hope that they will go away, or just say that that's just part of growing old. There are things that we can do, and we are sitting in a place right now that can do something about that for us.